Hello, hello. Welcome back to Loki's Librarian. Wow, that's an interesting typo. Welcome back to Loki's Librarian. If you are new here, welcome. I am your librarian, Katrina, and on Sundays I do a thing called Books and Booze, where I review a book and mix up a cocktail. This month I'm looking at women who have fought back and survived, women who have stories to tell or be told, making this week's book The Women Who Wouldn't Wheesht, Voices from the Front Line of Scotland's Battle for Women's Rights. It's edited by Susan Dalgety and Lucy Hunter Blackburn. The accompanying cocktail is Courage. It is 1.5 ounces of 1.5 ounces each. Amaretto, Southern Comfort, coconut rum, blue Curacao, and then 2 ounces each of orange juice, cranberry juice, and pineapple juice. There's a lot that goes into this one, so let's get started. Let's do this. Organize the alcohol here so I can put everything back over there as I finish. Okay, so the book starts out with a definition because, well, Wheesht is more of a localized term. I think it's actually pronounced Wheesht. I'm probably mispronouncing a lot of things. It means a plea or demand for silence, to silence, or be silent. So the women who contributed essays to this book refused to remain silent or to be silent in the face of being ordered to do so and to give up their rights in favor of men. Now, most people are very well aware of what's going on in Scotland because it's been on the news. It's been on the news for a lot of reasons, not least of which because J.K. Rowling came out as a very vocal advocate in favor of these women. God bless her for it. And very much as the women in this book told it like it is, I'm not going to pull punches either. I'm not going to dance around with the politically correct nonsense. Trans women are not women. They are men in women face. And believe me, I was shocked that this matter of trans rights kicked off in Scotland of all places. I'm pretty sure a lot of people are like, really? Scotland? Seems like a... Oh, shit. Oh, shit. Hang on. I'm going to need a man. See, this is why men are... Hey, honey? I need your manly strength. The lid is quite stuck on the rum. I need manly strength. Okay, that opened up, and that... Okay, just the rum. Everything else is open. Should have gone with the big cocktail shaker, I think. Yeah, should have gone with a big cocktail shaker. This is going to be a lot. Thank you. See, manly strength. Hey, 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 back off.
Get a good grip on it.
Thank you. Thank you, manly strength. Love you.
Love you too.
I really should have gone with a big cocktail shaker on this one. Let's see what happens next. So, okay, where was I? Oh, okay, I was shocked that this kicked off in Scotland. It seems so unlikely. Scotland is really not that big of a country at the very far north end of the United Kingdom. It seems so unlikely. I mean, like Paris, Berlin, Rome, even London was a more likely place for this level of insanity to peak. So why Scotland? Seriously, might have to run down and get the big cocktail shaker. Well, gay rights were very late coming to Scotland, basically. And that's basically the short version of it, all right? A lot of other places started accepting that homosexuality was not a choice. That, you know, people are in fact born that way. And then Scotland eventually caught up. And then in a desire to be seen as more progressive than progressive, is kicked off in Scotland. And basically that is the short version of why Scotland became the heart of this level of insanity. Shit. This is going to be a mess. I keep saying I need to clean my office. Today might be the day the office gets cleaned. So Scotland raced ahead with gender recognition, starting as early as 1995, with a transgender support group getting incorporated into Reach Out Scotland, which was an LGBT charity. And of course, at first they're more than willing to help, right? Because, yeah, we get it. You know, we're the gay rights activists have been down and out, and they've been fighting the good fight for a very long time at this point. And they're more than happy to help somebody who needs it. Oh my God. Oh, I should have gone with a really big cocktail shaker. This is special. My cocktail shaker is literally right at the brim. Let's see if I can do this without making too big of a mess. So you got Reach Out Scotland, an LGBT charity, and then 2 years later, the Nascent Equality Network held its first community conference that featured a transgender issue workshop. And by 2003, LGBT Youth Project, which had started in Edinburgh in '89, had evolved into an LGBT Youth Scotland. You know, the blue Curacao really adds a shit ton of blue to that. It's a very bluish cocktail. So anyways, where were we? And with all of this comes money, because people donate to causes, right? And then people especially believe in equality and liberty. And so, yeah, they're gonna start donating money, and that money is slowly funneled towards politicians through lobbyists. And in 2014, Nicola Sturgeon is made First Minister of Scotland and leader of the Scottish National Party. And she was, I think, the first female minister of Scotland, and pretty immediately starts pushing for gender recognition certificates and trans rights, all at the expense of women's rights. And this despite claiming to be a dyed-in-the-wool feminist. Well, it is absurdly sweet. I mean, I'll drink it. It's not undrinkable, but it is very sweet. The person who posted the recipe online even said this is very sweet. I would probably try it with less Curacao, but I went with the recipe as written. It's very sweet. The coconut is actually the overwhelming flavor profile. The coconut from the rum that we couldn't open. So obviously we got it open, but yeah, that's very sweet. So Nicola Sturgeon starts pushing for trans rights, all at the expense of women's rights. And no matter how much women argued against it, and poll after poll showed not just women, but overwhelmingly the country in general was against what was being pushed for the self-ID, which basically just says all you got to do is say that you're a woman and poof, you're a woman. Just poof, magically you're a woman or a man or whatever your alternate is, right? And no matter how many women spoke with their representatives and argued against trans rights and putting trans rights above their own safety and that this was harmful, the women were ignored. Despite mounting evidence of exactly that they were being put at risk by trans activists. And this book is filled with essays, heart-wrenching essays by women who fought back against this absurdity and have paid the price professionally, personally. They've been threatened, and being threatened with rape is not enough to get the police involved, but calling a trans woman a man is going to get the police involved. That is how backwards and absurd things are in the United Kingdom these days. And it starts with a foreword where the author has given birth to a daughter, which is, happy news, right? New baby, that's always beautiful. Daughter was born with severe learning disabilities and in the future will need full-time care. Care to guess how many special needs children are abused by male caretakers? I mean, it's enough that there are actually laws in Scotland mandating female care workers for such children. Except now you've got Nicola Sturgeon in charge, pushing that trans women are women, and there's a very real chance that a trans woman, born a man, will be caring for her child in the future. I can't even imagine the absolute horror of that, of knowing that when you're no longer there to care for your child, a random man might be put in charge of your child's care. My God. Remember a few years ago when I read Dr. Deborah So's book, The End of Gender, and we learned that a lot of transgender women are actually fetishists. They fetishize women and being women, including children in their fantasies. At best makes them pedophile adjacent, at best. And in reality, including children in your sexual fantasies makes you a pedophile. No wonder the author wants to ensure that a biological female will have the care of her at-risk daughter in the future. Totally get it. Now, I am not saying that all transgenders are pedophiles. I would actually argue that most of them are just garden variety paraphilias. They get their rocks off by dressing in women's underwear. Nothing wrong with that until you bring it public. Start dancing for children in your underwear. And that paraphilia can still be extremely violent towards women. We have essay after essay of women in the book reporting exactly that. Threats of extreme violence follow anyone who speaks out. And that's crazy. What's crazy is they're not even saying that transgender people don't deserve rights. They're saying that women's rights should be protected and not lost at the expense of an extreme minority of the population. Like, my God, I kept thinking of the episode of South Park where they hang the sense of shame in the public square.
Are you sure this is a good idea?
very end of the episode. This is the you know, when people are calling for safe spaces and you have, you know, reality keeps crashing in and crashing in and crashing in, and so they just finally hang reality and all their sense of shame goes with it. We as a society have truly lost all sense of shame, which is why people are letting their fetishes fly in public. These used to be very private things you kept in the privacy of your own home. And I gotta say, the world was a much politer place when you didn't let your freak flag fly so freely. That's all I'm saying, man. Maybe roll some of that back and let a little sanity return. So Nicola Sturgeon, from the time she's elected, spends the next decade making it so that all you have to do is say you feel like a woman and you're entitled to full access to women's spaces. Spaces like rape crisis centers. The women in this book fought tooth and nail to get legislation passed that they could request a doctor of their same biological sex in case they were sexually assaulted. Isn't that crazy? Crazy. Because otherwise they could get a transgender woman collecting their rape kit. I mean, can you see why someone freshly traumatized by a violent sexual assault might not want a man being that up close and personal with them? Well, apparently Nicola Sturgeon couldn't understand it, and those who pointed out the trauma of such were themselves threatened with sexual assault by trans activists. And they were bullied and shamed by rape crisis centers. And I feel like there was one essay in there by a woman who requested to be seen by a biological woman and was told, sorry, we can't help you. Yeah. Starting in 2018, those voices started to get louder as the women in Scotland began organizing their resistance. They formed several groups for Women Scotland, Murray Blackburn Mackenzie, and they took this to social media, which, smart move on their part. I mean, it still mostly remained small and localized, right? I mean, people weren't necessarily paying attention besides the odd AP piece that gets picked up across the pond, if you will, until J.K. Rowling enters the chat. Now, every essay in this book is absolutely outstanding and gut-wrenching to read through, and not a few of them made me cry. Now I gotta pull it back because I'm gonna start crying again. But it would be remiss not to mention who is arguably the most famous and famously outspoken of the TERFs, trans exclusionary radical feminists, right? And understand, I do not mean this in a derogatory way at all, although there are more than one essay in the book that notes this term is spoken derisively, usually by a man, to mean a woman who won't shut up about men invading their spaces. So I say, ladies, reclaim it. If you're a TERF, own that shit. Be proud of it. Wear t-shirts. Proud TERF, all right? So what made J.K. Rowling speak out? Well, one of the essays in this book is called Courage Calls, a Case Study. It was written by Susan Smith. And in it, she talks about a small group of women who got together in January of 2019 and created For Women Scotland. And the courage demonstrated by this small group of women, created ripple effects, which called more and more women to the cause of women's rights in Scotland. And not just in Scotland. I mean, this has reached far broader. One of those ripples would eventually be Maya Forstater, who did not feature in this book. She didn't submit an essay. But in 2019, and partly because these were by women who live in Scotland, Scottish women, and Maya Forstater was in England. She was working for a think tank in England and took her bosses to court for discrimination after she stated her belief that human beings cannot literally change their sex. Basically, trans women are men. That was it. Very basic biological fact. Forstater did lose her initial case, although she would win on appeal. But after her initial loss, Rowling famously tweeted, I'm going to throw it up here, but here's the text. Dress however you please, call yourself whatever you like, sleep with any consenting adult who will have you. Live your best life in peace and security. But force women out of their jobs for stating that sex is real. Hashtag I stand with Maya. That was it. That's all she tweeted. All right. Holy shit, did all hell break loose. With that single tweet, Rowling painted a big old target on her back for the trans activists to aim at, and God bless her, she has never ducked once. She comes back swinging every time. And the reason she finally spoke out was guilt. She was a sense of... There's no way I'm getting through this whole cocktail, because there's a lot of it in there. You saw how much liquid was in that. My God. A cup and a half. Oh, so she was effectively shamed into action by the courage of the women who were risking and losing everything to state the truth. All right, and then the smart thing to do, and she even said this, was to keep her head down and say nothing. And this is what a lot of famous people do. They don't want to risk upsetting the apple cart. But courage called to her, and she answered, and has been vocally outspoken ever since. She also incidentally references a blog post she wrote on this matter, which, for obvious reasons, I would hope it would be obvious. It was obvious to me once I read the essay. It did not go as viral as her tweet did, because the people who should read it and understand what she's saying would never in a million years do so. That is foreboding. She is now a TERF and should be shunned at all costs. But I'll link it below. It's, of course, very well written because she is an outstanding writer and kind. I mean, she's not trying to kick anyone who's down and truly struggling, just trying to provide context for why all of this matters so much and why she came out in favor of women's rights over men's insistence in this instance. So that tweet was December 2019, and the battleground for trans politics has gone back and forth, winning some ground, losing some ground. I think above the biggest wins was when Nicola Sturgeon, after years of pandering to the trans activist, was forced into a very awkward interview.
Do you consider Isla Bryson to be a man or a woman?
Look, I am not getting into...
Where she tried to justify her trans women are women stance while explaining that violent convicted rapist Adam Graham, who claimed to be trans woman Isla Bryson, who is a woman because trans women are women, but won't be housed in a woman's prison. I mean, she danced around and refused to say if this lovely bulge in the front of his leggings, was a man or a woman. And clearly he's not even trying. I mean, tuck that shit in, man. I know there's tape. You could do that. Didn't even try. He just put on a crappy blonde wig and some pink leggings like, I'm a woman. Shortly after this debacle, on February 15th, 2023, Sturgeon resigns, and Scotland's Secretary of State, it wasn't on February 15th, but shortly right around that time, Secretary of State Alistair Jack, who's a conservative, blocked self-ID as a law. I think he said it would conflict with the Equality Act or something like that. And the hypocrites breathed a quiet sigh of relief that they no longer had to argue in favor of what they knew to be absolute bullshit, while publicly saying, oh, that's ridiculous. Trans women are women. Fucking hypocrites. The women of Scotland are still fighting this battle. I mean, today, all right, February 9th, 2025. I load up Twitter and immediately get an article from the Scotsman. Literally, a few hours ago this posted. We have nurse Sandy Peggy has brought a case against the National Health Service and Dr. Beth Upton, a trans woman, for unlawful harassment under the Equality Act, as Upton insisted that Peggy use the changing room while Upton was in it, which Peggy was quite uncomfortable doing because Upton is a man. And so, yes, the women who want Wheesht are still fighting this battle. So are we, by the way. I know President Trump just signed into law H.R. 28, the Protection of Women and Girls in Sports Act, which passed along outstandingly party lines. I'll link it so you can go and look it up yourself, but I'll also, my screen capture here. 218 yeas to 206 nays, 1 voted present, 9 abstained. Of the 206 nays, all were Democrats. Every single Democrat, all but 2 Democrats voted against protecting women and girls in sports. They said, no, trans women are women. Boys should totally be able to compete against girls. It's totally fair because it's not like their musculature and testosterone don't give them an advantage. Despite I literally just had to have my husband open a bottle of rum for me because I couldn't get the cap off. But men don't have an advantage. It was actually quite timely on that one. The 2 Democrats who crossed party lines and voted yay, to no one's surprise, were from Texas. You had Henry Queller and Vicente Gonzalez, both from Texas. Both Democrats, both crossed party lines, and are probably persona non grata in the Democratic Party right now. Shows just how far the Democrats have strayed from God, that they are still co-signing this bullshit. And as much as that was a win, Google still assures me, never fear, we are still as fucked as Scotland has been, as women's only spaces have been ruled discriminatory by the Supreme Court as of January 2022. So my idea to create a women's only cult is currently on the back burner. Gotta figure something else out here. So the battle rages on both sides of the Atlantic. And this book was more of a rallying cry than a summation of a battle fought and won. It's a summation of the battle to date, but it's not over, not by a long shot. Seriously, this book was outstanding. The voices are clear and strong. And I am very pleased to have Scotland as part of my heritage. And that's it for this week. If you liked what you saw, don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you guys next Sunday. Bye.